So we were driving through western Nebraska, I guess central Nebraska still, in our 2021 F150 XLT Power Boost Hybrid. And it's been kind of an interesting day. If you are interested in this kind of thing, the self-driving capability, otherwise known as lane keeping assist, has come through like a champ. We had probably 30 plus mile an hour side winds when we were going through Iowa, and you could see the wind turbines. They were like blowing at top speed. They were spinning like propellers, because the wind was coming down from north to south, and there's a huge weather system just south of us in, like, you know, Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and, you know, massive hailstorms and tornadoes and, you know, once in a decade storm, that kind of thing. And that's the whole reason we took the northern route here on I-80, which will be jumping off of in about an hour onto, well, 67 miles onto I-76 into Denver, and then picking up I-70 to cross the Rockies. But yeah, it was, I mean, we were getting pushed around pretty hard by the wind, and you can see the 18-wheelers, you know, blowing back and forth. We didn't actually see any trucks that were tipped over, to our surprise, or like big campers, you know, 12-foot tall campers getting towed by, you know, pickup trucks. But this truck has proven that, I mean, the refinement and the development they did on it to make that lane keeping system work. And again, you see that blue halo around the picture of the vehicle. That means the lane keeping system is working and it's driving the truck. And it's doing this constantly to keep the truck centered perfectly in the lane. There was only one time we had to take over, when we were going around a, you know, pretty sharp turn, still in the interstate. But it just kind of figured it wrong, and it took us a little bit too far towards the edge, and then we had to kind of grab it and, or I should say, you know, just kind of correct it. You know, we didn't need to grab it because we always had our hands on it, because you need to never take your hands off the steering wheel. And it's kind of sad that needs to be said. But yeah, there are people that'll get like a weight, you know, a specially designed sort of weight, and they'll hang it on the side of the steering wheel, and that provides a constant level of pressure onto it, and that will trick the vehicle into thinking that you are holding onto the wheel when you aren't. And it's about the dumbest thing you could possibly do. You know, you heard of the Darwin Award. That's just like stupid beyond belief, to be so lazy that you can't even keep your hand on the steering wheel while the car is driving for you. But people do that don't have any, like, survival instinct. But either way, you look at our gas mileage for the day, it's only 16.3, and a couple hours ago it was around 18, and yesterday it was 20.5 or 20.6. So when we left Michigan, southeast Michigan, went across the state of Michigan, through Indiana, and then through Illinois, and about an hour into Iowa, going, you know, the same type of speeds you see here. We're going 80 right now, speed limit being 75. We were going anywhere between 70 and 75 and 80, or the low 80s. And in the course of 450 miles, we got 20.6 miles to the gallon yesterday. And today, in the course of, you see 527 miles, our average MPGs are 16.3. And there's two reasons for that. Two reasons. The first reason is that, you know, when we stopped in Iowa City last night, it was still pretty flat. I mean, the whole drive from Michigan, southeast Michigan to Iowa City, it's pretty flat on the interstate. You know, maybe a little bit of slight rises and dips. And then you get further into central Iowa and then western Iowa, and you start to go up and down a little bit more. You know, it's like rolling hills. And in the course of going down the hills, sure, you're off the throttle, and then you think, well, no big deal, because you save gas going down the hills, and then you use that same amount of gas that you would have used when you go back up the other side. But the problem is with this truck, what you see right there is the boost gauge. And look what it does. I'm not even getting into it at all. It's at a steady 80 miles an hour, but the boost is going from 0, and then out of nowhere, the boost will go up to 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 PSI in order to maintain that speed. And so when you got to get back up the rise that you just came down the other side of, yeah, the turbos are gonna spool up, and you're gonna start burning a lot of gas. And so those slight rises and dips will start to get the engine into the boost, and that's gonna start to get your fuel consumption going up. The other thing that's happening is that, again, today we have had some very, very heavy crosswinds. You know, coming directly from the side, you think, well, no big deal, that doesn't affect your fuel consumption. But then at different points, they were not necessarily off the side, but they were off like the front quarter. And, you know, we saw our, not just average, but our instant fuel economy go down to like 12 or 13, you know, for half an hour or for an hour. Like when we crossed over from Iowa into Nebraska around like Omaha, Lincoln. Yeah, we weren't getting a side wind, we were getting more of a headwind. And the hood of the truck was doing something kind of disconcerting, or disappointing at least. It was starting to kind of flap a little bit. Like it wanted to, you know, break free from the latch and then flip right up and over and smash into the windshield of the truck. So that was a little bit disappointing. You know, again, and we weren't even going that fast. We were going between 70 and 80. And the crosswind and then the headwind from like the front quarter was so strong that it made the hood start to flap. You know, it's an aluminum body, and Ford has done a very good job with it, of making it a very, very solid constructed, solidly built truck. But, you know, who knows? We prefer not to think that it's the aluminum hood that's so soft that it just starts flapping in a really strong headwind. But, you know, we hadn't seen it before, and none of our other trucks do that. You know, we got a 2003 Dodge 3500. We got a 2011 Silverado 3500, and neither one of those do anything like that. But we're not going to start crazy rumors about how the aluminum body, you know, and the aluminum hood is, you know, soft, not strong enough. I'm sure they engineered it very, very well, but in a 30-mile-an-hour side wind, which turns into like a 25, 30-mile-an-hour almost headwind, yeah, you'll start to see things like that happen. Nothing remotely like that has happened to us so far. Anyway, really good day. We've got 533 miles down. We have another 243 left to go. So that's, you know, 750, 800 miles in the course of a day. And in this truck, with the lane keeping system engaged, it's actually been driving itself for the majority of the day. All we do is kick back and relax with our hand on the wheel and supervise, so that we can step in if it does something stupid. You know, earlier we talked about the final drive. You see at 80 miles an hour, the truck is turning at just under 2,000 RPM. And, you know, with a 10-speed transmission. And if we had the choice, we would have chosen like a 355 final drive to get the RPMs down under 2,000 at 80 miles an hour. You know, maybe 1800, 1700. And maybe that would help the fuel economy a little bit, maybe or maybe not. The thing it would definitely do is cause it to use the turbo a little more. Again, look at the boost. It's at 8 psi just to get up and over like an overpass, you know. So yeah, at higher speeds, when the RPMs are, you know, what they are, instead of downshifting, the truck will just lean a little more into the throttle. The cruise control will. And, you know, when you lean into the throttle, that increases the load on the engine. And either it can downshift or it can just generate more boost, which is what it does. And it gives you more power to get up and over whatever rise or whatever hill you need to get up and over. And it works, and you don't even think about it. You don't even notice this engine making 10 or 12 psi of boost. You don't hear the turbos whistling. You don't, you know, the sound of the engine doesn't get louder. It doesn't feel like it's straining. It just kind of does its thing in the background, and it's completely transparent. So, you know, this powertrain is very, very, very well engineered and developed and refined. You can tell they spent a lot of time working on it. One thing I haven't talked about at all is the hybrid system, because when you're going at highway speeds, especially in a place like Nebraska where the speed limit is 75, which means you could really go 80 or 85. When you're going at highway speeds, the hybrid system does absolutely nothing for you. When you're slower, when you're in the city, or when you're slowing down to take an off-ramp, or maybe in the Rockies, you know, we'll find out tomorrow what it does for you in the mountains. Maybe it makes a difference there. But the problem is, as we've discussed previously, a hybrid system in the Ford, because of the fact that the battery only can hold 1.5 kilowatt hours of charge of electricity, it's not enough to make that much of a difference. When you're at high speeds, or I should say highway speeds, between 70 and 80 or 85, at a steady state on the interstate. If it was like a 20 or a 30 or a 50 kilowatt hour battery, yeah, it could do a lot more. It could put a lot more energy into the drivetrain and run the vehicle, you know, for 15 or 20 minutes, or half an hour, or 45 minutes at highway speeds. And if it was a plug-in, yeah, then you could like charge it at night, and then it would be able to make a lot more of a difference when you're driving down the highway. But no, the system as it is currently set up does basically nothing for you at highway speeds. It helps you a lot in the city, and as we've talked about in other videos, you have to get the F150 Hybrid in order to get the maximum output on your AC power, your Pro Power on board, which will give you up to 7.2 kilowatts of power of output. But only if you got the hybrid, and only if you pay the extra $750 to get the max output. If you get the hybrid and just the regular output, then you're looking at 2.4 kilowatts and 120 volt AC only. If you pay the extra money to get your 7.2 kilowatts, yeah, then you get 240 as well as 120. You get 30 amps of 240 volt power, or you get 20 amps of 120 volt power. We can talk about that some other time in terms of what that can do for you. But the bottom line is that the bigger and more powerful AC power output, that can run your house, or that can run a very big camper. That can run like all the appliances, including the air conditioning, in a 30-foot camper for, you know, 3 or 4 days, at least for a weekend, if not longer. You know, that can run the heat in a camper for a weekend or for 3 or 4 days in the middle of winter. And it won't be running the engine the whole time, because it'll be drawing off the battery, and it'll be turning on the engine as needed, but it won't be running the engine 24/7 because of the fact that it's got the battery, so you can draw off the battery for, you know, X amount of time until it runs down, and then it'll fire up the engine. There are a lot of videos starting to come out from people in Texas who ran their house off of their F-150 during the ice storms a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago at this point. Very impressive. And the truck was not running the whole time. It was just running as needed, you know. And who knows, with all the tornadoes and all the heavy weather hitting Missouri, Tennessee, the Southeast, Oklahoma, today and tomorrow, maybe a lot of other people are going to be glad they got the F-150 as well in those places. So there you have it. Again, a pretty long day. You know, we're coming up on 550 miles. We got about 250 left to go, give or take. And this is not even tiring or exhausting in the least. You know how you get strung out, like in that song, whatever the hell it is. Just exhausted after a day of driving. We've been going almost 8 hours and we're not tired in the least because the truck has been driving for us. Even with all the heavy winds we've been fighting our way through, the truck has been taking care of all of it. And we just get to sit back and supervise and, you know, listen to the sound system. Great truck for long trips. After driving this thing on a long trip, you will not want to go back to anything else. Very impressive and very well executed. So good job, Ford. Anyway, thanks everyone. We'll talk to you again later.